Chicago History Museum off there to the left, on the east side of the street. We'll be passing along the side of it. When you get to the flagpoles at the end of it, eyeballs to the right, you'll be able to see the gravestone crypt where Ira is interned. Ira died in 1858. He never saw his buddy Abraham Lincoln get elected. That was 1860. Remember, it was 1856 that Fremont was the Republican candidate for president. But you all remember that from history class anyway, right? Yeah, sure. All right. That's okay. Take good notes. All right, let's take a gaze off here to the right here in a moment. You'll see the gravestone crypt. And then up ahead we'll actually be to the 2100 block of Clark Street and see where the massacre came down. That'll be on the left-hand side. Okay, there's Ira's resting place to the right with black wrought iron fencing around it and lights that go on here at sundown. So we've got the site of the massacre up ahead, but there's no sign, there's no plaque, there's no marker to indicate that it's special. The city of Chicago does not share our enthusiasm. They want you to forget about it ever happening. Across the street from that spot, however, there is a building where they do remember very well. That was the lookout house where Capone's men would set up with binoculars to watch the coming and going of Moran's boys so they could achieve the massacre. And that building is now the Chicago Pizza and Oven Grinder. Anybody ever been there? Great place. And they have quite a few Capone-era photographs and such on the wall for decorations. And that was the historic spot of the lookout house. But the garage, sadly, no longer with us. But in my line of work, no big deal because the ghosts remain. And here's something else. When the building was torn down back in 1967, many wanted to have a souvenir of that building, and they took away bricks. And 414 bricks were purchased by a man by the name of George Patey, who ships them out to Vancouver, and he lines them up in the men's washroom of his banjo bar. You can imagine the indignity they went through. And he took them down later, put them in storage, and finally sold them off on the internet, CaponeWall.com, and then he promptly died. Many believe that Patey had bad luck because of the bricks. Possible. And he's not the only one. You see, if it was one person, it could be coincidence, but he's not the only one. There was, for instance, Jane Gabriel, the voice for many years of US 30 drag strip commercials here on local radio. Remember those? Sunday, Sunday, Sunday! Jane Gabriel, radio announcer, who ran the, recorded those commercials for US 30 drag strip, besides being a car buff, was also into gangsters, and he took 200 bricks home with his wife back in '67, and after that, well, they went through a messy divorce. He went through open heart surgery and a kidney transplant, and finally told me what turned his life around was getting rid of the bricks and the bimbos. That's the second collection of bricks down the drain here. But there's a third large holding, and that's another 200 bricks owned by Mike Johnson, former owner of the Bucktown Pub on Cortlandt Avenue. Mike Johnson had bricks that he picked up in '67, and after that went through two nasty divorces, lost $1 million in cash and property, has a staghorn kidney stone in his left kidney, a bad heart waiting for a heart transplant, is a recovering alcoholic, a diabetic, and a brick wall fell upon him. As he was walking by his own bar, the bank was cutting a hole in the wall for an ATM machine. They didn't look first, they blasted out the bricks, and Mike was knocked down to the ground in a shower of bits and pieces of his own building. So Mike's now in retirement in Iowa, and he's asked me to help him out. He wants me to help him sell the bricks. Now, George Patey sold his bricks on the internet for $800 a piece. That's all we're asking now, $800 a piece. Those are like 8-year-old prices. Hey, it's a better investment than the stock market. And if you're interested, all the information is on my website, ghosttours.com, or we'll talk later on. But maybe you don't want to keep it, but you might want to pass it on to somebody like a spouse, ex-spouse, boss, in-law, or bimbo you want to give that special message to. Okay, here on the right, check out all the people going into the pizza restaurant, the Lookout House. Red sauce on the right, bloodshed on the left, as we come up now to the spot where the massacre occurred. Take it slow, Gaston. Behind that center tree where the parking lot begins, that's where the 7 men died. And yes, many of those in the retirement home here on the left have had experiences. I document all that in my book, which will be available later on as well. And for now, though, we've got to segue into our next gangster story, because they're close. We're going to turn left on Webster, get over to Lincoln, and now we're going to be on our way to the spot where John Dillinger bought it back in 1934, 75 years ago, this past Wednesday. John Dillinger was from Indiana. Who's from Indiana tonight? Oh, well, we got somebody?
Yeah.
All right, this one's for you. John Dillinger would come from Indiana, but spent much of his time in Chicago, especially towards the end of his life. And it was in this very area where he lived, where he went to bars, pool halls, restaurants, took out pretty girls. You want to call that hiding out. And Dillinger was betrayed by his girlfriend's landlady. His girlfriend was Polly Hamilton, and she lived in a boarding house brothel run by Anna Sage, and Anna went to the feds and cut a deal to stay in America because she was up for deportation. That was back when immigrations actually did deport people. And, a long time ago. And so Anna is told to wear a red dress, well actually orangey red, and that would be the sign, call up the FBI, and they'd come and take out Dillinger. And that's how it came down, because Dillinger had a fatal flaw. He was much too nice to the ladies. He invites his girlfriend to go see a new gangster movie, Manhattan Melodrama, starring Clark Gable, William Palmer, and Eloy. And he says, why don't you bring the landlady as well? Now that Anna knew where they're going to go, that meant that Anna could tip off the feds. They're waiting outside the theater that night. It was a Sunday, and the three had watched the cartoon, the newsreel, the feature film, and left the theater. And that's when the FBI opened fire in a crowd and hit Dillinger. He got 2 doors down the street, drops next to a Chinese chop suey carryout. That's where he bled to death back in 1934. But psychically, it's a different story. I went to nearby DePaul University, right around the corner. After class, I never cut class, but after class, I would go to bars, pool halls, restaurants to do research. Research can be rough, but it can pay dividends. And I learned about the ghost of Dillinger, a bluish-gray silhouette-shaped form, running, tripping, and falling in the mouth of the alley. A desperate Dillinger seen over and over again trying to get down the alley. Well, that was then, and this is now. Nobody's seen that ghost in recent years. He's not been seen, but he has been felt. Let me explain. The alley is relatively clean, well-lit, and rat-free by Northside standards. But for some reason, the alley is shunned. It is avoided. People take the long way around. They don't go down the alley. They go down the triple intersection of Lincoln, Halsted, and Fullerton, avoiding the alley at all costs. Why? Because they say there's something there. They chill up your spine, a goosebump sensation. The back of your hair stands up. The hair on the back of your neck, I should say, stands up, and the back of your arm stands up. All this and more takes place in a totally good alley. But this is where John Dillinger bought it so many years ago. In other words, John Dillinger's ghost has made the transition from one type of haunting to another, from one that you can see, a visual, an apparition, to one that you can feel as a cold spot. And it was on the anniversary, July 22, 2001, that Jackie Thomas, a Chicago Tribune reporter, called me up and invited me to meet her at the alley to be interviewed. I came here with my buddy Colin Cordwell from the Red Lion Pub on Lincoln Avenue. The three of us are there at the alley just before 10:30. And Colin said, I think we should say a prayer for the soul of John Dillinger. A good idea, I thought. We're saying our silent prayer, and then the light above our head went out. I admit it's on a short. That could have been a coincidence. But when that light went out, simultaneously, the three of us, the only three there, all had a chill go up our spine, our tailbone to the scalp and top of our head. That could not be coincidence. There can only be some kind of intervention on the part of John Dillinger with us, the living, on the anniversary of his death, precisely 10:30, July 22nd, the anniversary of his death, 2001. We've got this Lincoln Park Fest on today, but when we get up to the intersection, you'll be able to see off to the right, just up ahead, the signage there for the Biograph Theater. It still exists, but it's no longer a motion picture theater. It is now live theater run by the Victory Gardens theater troupe. And besides the theater, the spot that Dillinger died, the alley there, it's right next to a Mexican restaurant called Fiesta Mexicana, but that used to be the Chinese chop suey carryout. So things have changed somewhat over the years, but the alley is the alley and the ghost is the ghost. And we'll see all that here as we get up to the intersection and then take a right-hand turn. Like I say, we won't be able to stop as we usually do, but I've got other material to fit you in, fill in with you to take care of you here later on this evening.
It's only today, this thing, or
It's only this weekend, Gaston, yeah. So it'll be on tonight. I think it was on last night, but I mean, it'll be probably going to be on tomorrow. But if anybody wanted to check out the spot, if you're only in town for a short time, you'll probably have to pay a fee to walk back there until Monday, until they close on Sunday. This is the bread and circuses to keep people's minds off the taxation in this town. Pay no attention to the politicians picking your pockets here. Just go to a street fair. I'm sorry, folks, if I make any political judgments tonight, remember, I'm a libertarian. I despise all politicians. Okay. I've been to Oz. I got a brain. There's DePaul University just on the left. So you can see how close it comes here to the spot. But I had many interesting time up here during my college days and afterwards. I first learned about the ghost of Dillinger from two young ladies who ran a Native American shop. They did crafts done by Indians on various reservations out in the American West. And they tipped me off about it. And sure enough, I followed it over the years. People just didn't walk down that alley. Won't be able to see the marquee very well until we start taking that turn because that screen